So joining me now is none other than the visionary Karim Rashid. Thank you so much and welcome
Thank you,
to the
dear.
HIVE Furniture Show.
Thanks so much.
So let's jump right in.
Yeah.
We know that you've been referred to as the Prince of Plastic in the past. And
That was an old title from 20 years ago.
But I want to know, I'm really interested to know, how do you use your bold designs and functionality? How do you incorporate them together?
Well, my feeling is that when you say bold designs, is that I think that there's a lot of work in the world that's sort of similar. So when I design, if I'm given a couch to do, I need to think about maybe the next way that how we're starting to change the way we live with these things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'll give you an example. We're sitting on a couch now, right? So what does the couch provide us? So my feeling is I start from the beginning of not thinking as a couch as the archetype, but think about it more of, okay, I'm going to make an object where we are going to, let's say, have, interior pleasure. What am I doing there? Socializing, watching a film, maybe on my phone or iPad, maybe I'm eating. And I start to sort of design objects around the social behaviors of the time we live in, because things have changed, but somehow we always keep repeating the same archetype over and over and over again. If I'm designing this kind of furniture for a lobby of a hotel, I think to myself, in the lobby of a hotel, a lot of people do business. Probably 50% of people sitting in the lobby are somehow in business meetings. So I need to design those objects to think about, what does a business meeting mean? You know, so if you're sitting across from me having a business meeting, we should actually have some sort of silence or a little bit of a design a couch that sort of envelops us so that we have some privacy. Right, that kind of, or think about the acoustics. So there's a lot of factors in design that can really become innovative and new and interesting based on the changing social behaviors. That's number one. Mm-hmm. Number two is, I like to do things that sort of have a language that speak and make us think about our world we're in. In other words, maybe I'm not so reserved. It's not about making the couch sort of fit in and get quiet, but the opposite, about making the object a piece of, I don't want to say a piece of art, but something that sort of inspires you. When you look at it, you give a smile, and you feel emotively uplifted. Mm-hmm. And onward, that's how so those are the factors that I think about. The other factors I think about is, because I'm very interested in technologies, production, materials, all those things start to play. And inevitably, I think when you're a creative person, you're searching for new opportunities, right? To do something original.
Definitely.
If you look at the history of architecture and design, most things that we look back at as iconic or pivotal had new technology.
Definitely. So talking about that technology, obviously a big buzzword that we're hearing a lot of right now is AI.
Yes.
How is AI kind of fitting into the design world, and how is it changing the design landscape?
Well, it's turning everything upside down, actually, because it's so disruptive that there's a big fear that maybe even design will not even be a profession in the future. That we don't necessarily need designers. I'm hearing more and more of people around the world who decide, they're going to make a restaurant or a condominium or a hotel, and they don't even hire a designer because they're looking at images from Pinterest, etc., and sort of copying it and saying to your contractor, let's do something like this, let's do something like that. So next thing you know, the whole interior design profession is starting to sort of disappear in a way. So there's some fear there, obviously. So the question is, well, then how do you retain your position in it? Mm-hmm. And I think the way to retain your position is you have to be even more creative now than ever.
Yeah.
Right, number one. Number two is you have to have some very good knowledge and experience of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because you then know how to make these things manifest and implement these things, right? I mean, it's one thing to have a beautiful image on the internet, and I can do with AI, I can get almost any image I want. The other thing, how do you take it from there and make it a reality?
Yeah.
So a designer has to be good at that sort of A to B. But with all that said, I don't know. I don't have the answers, frankly. I've been reading a lot and listening to sort of other intellectuals and sociologists and other people who are discussing AI. It's moving so fast, and technology is moving so fast that, 3 years ago, it was kind of complicated for me to kind of derive and get something out of AI. Today, with the right sketch and the right words, I can get an image very, very quickly,
Yeah.
like in nanoseconds. So it makes my life very easier. It affords me to go through many, many ideas. But I'm going to give you a very pragmatic example. I'm working on a line of sinks and toilets for an Italian company. And I spent literally several days working on with AI, and I couldn't get a good result of what I want. So I went to my desk, I pulled out sketch papers again, I drew, I spent 3 hours, and I came up with some really nice concepts. I couldn't seem to get them from AI. So it taught me something, right? At least now, I don't know, 5 years from now, things will drastically change. But it taught me something that still, what I imagine in my mind and what I can get are two different things. So you still have to be like very creative. You have to really understand the typology you're working in, you know?
Yeah.
You have to think about the social human behavior, because AI tends to be very visually driven, at least in our profession.
Yeah.
But the visuals can be very unfunctional. They may look good, but wouldn't really work, all that. So I sit down and I almost draw like design 101, like I did when I was 20. I haven't changed. I used to fill a sketchbook every day, 50 pages every day. I find myself sketching less because of these tools, right?
Yeah.
And here I am going sort of back to the fundamentals in a way to get what I need.
Yeah, because I mean, AI can only produce what is already out there. It's, it's that algorithm. And it does make you question whether we will get to a point where every idea that is produced by AI is a copy either of something original or a copy of itself that has been reproduced. So where's the real authenticity in what it is capable of making?
Yes. Well, I think that's because we're at the beginning, though.
Yeah.
And the reality is we're at such we're like a little infant right now. So when AI grows up a little bit, becomes a teenager, which is probably only in 3 years,
Most probably.
We'll have a whole nother discussion about it.
Definitely.
The bigger question is, it's one thing in the creative end. The bigger question is, what is the majority of humanity going to do if the majority of jobs are replaced? And as much as there's advocates out there saying it'll actually make more jobs, I don't believe that for a moment.
No.
And even a small, I don't know. This is funny to say this on camera, but I was just sort of in a legal battle with somebody recently, and I decided, instead of hiring a lawyer, I will chat GBT everything, and I won the case more or less.
Well, I can't say that I'm surprised.
So I realized that the lawyer isn't really that necessary anymore. Definitely the paralegal's not. Definitely anything that is sort of cut and paste contractually is gone. Journalists are going to disappear. All this is going to disappear, and it's disappearing now, very, very quickly. So the whole world is talking about tariff wars, and I think that AI is a far more, I don't want to use the word dangerous, but far more complex shift in our globalization.
Most definitely. Now, we've spoke there about technology, we spoke about creativity. Another hot topic, especially here at HIVE, is sustainability. So I want to know how you are incorporating sustainability into your designs while still remaining true to your work ethic and your design authenticity.
Yes. Well, I will say that I was 11 years old in Montreal when Earth Day started. It started in Montreal. And so when I was brought up in Canada was very much a sort of extension of Northern Europe. So there were a lot of Dutch and Germans and Scandinavians that inhabited, and British that inhabited Canada. So it was super sensitive to the ecology. So I was brought up with 4 garbage cans in our kitchen. So, and then in university, we had to learn about sort of cyclic design, designing something where we know where at the end of this life, where it's going to go. So I've always been part of it. So I found it sort of strange and funny in a way that all of a sudden within the last decade, we're talking about it, because inevitably it should be part of everybody's radar, and every manufacturer should be relatively responsible, etc. And I even worked with companies over the years proposing to them materials I think they should use versus materials they're using to be more sustainable. So it's always been a part of me. But with that said, interestingly enough, from the outside looking at my work, a lot of people don't think I'm concerned with that. And why I'm not concerned with that, they think, is because my work is very colorful. And so they immediately associate that with a sort of plastic world, meaning that it's unsustainable.
Yeah.
And then they look at something like what we're sitting on, or they look at this fake wood floor, things of that nature, and they think that that's sustainable.
Yeah, it's like marketing packaging, isn't it? You know, something
Exactly.
is organic and they put it in neutral colors and everyone thinks it's good for you. But if you really look in the depths of what is actually in there, so it's like that color association.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're inundated with information, so it's quite hard to dissect everything and think about the physical things around you. But interesting, you bring up cosmetics. You know, there's a startup app in New York called Yuka, which is now enormous, and it has you scan a barcode in a
Tells you about the plastics in it
and
everything.
it lists all the toxins, etc., and it rates products, right? If you go into the normal, typical duty free with all the massive brands, the big ones, the giants, everything is rating 0 out of 100, 12 out of 100, 10 out of 100. Shocking, absolutely shocking. It's disturbing, you know?
Yeah.
And then you look at the biodegradable things or the packaging, the things that are non-toxic, organic, etc., and everybody's packaging, as you said, in this sort of really like banal, you know, like, and a lot of green on the packaging, a lot of beige, etc. And we as consumers were sort of like suckers for this, you know. And some of those things you think, oh, it looks like it's non-toxic, it looks safe, and then when you check it out on this app, you're just shocked.
Yeah.
You know, as an example. So I think you're right. And it's interesting color that way. Like we associate somehow these neutral colors with nature. But I always say, look at nature. If you look at fish, look at insects, you look at amphibians, you look at birds, the colors in nature. We have every color possible in nature.
Yeah.
And incredible colors, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can see a frog that's literally like electric blue, and the frog scales will turn into like some crazy bright green, like beautiful colors.
Yeah.
So I don't know why we as human beings observe nature as sort of brown
Yeah.
or sky blue,
Yes.
like, or green because of trees. And that's all. And then that's it, you know? And then there's a fear. There's a great fear about color. If you look at this fair fair we're in right now, I don't see one person wearing color. I mean, and when I mean color, I mean a stronger color. I mean, everybody's in neutrals.
Yeah.
And the majority of the furniture here is all in neutrals,
We're living
right?
in a very neutral world right
Yeah,
now.
and for me, I don't know. I don't know where it came from as a child or something, but I want energy.
Yeah.
Positive energy. You know? So,
Definitely. Interesting. So obviously, you know, you've had an incredible career, and you know your designs are outstanding, thought-provoking, innovative. How do you maintain that throughout the years? How are you always at the forefront of design?
It's my obsession with doing original things. I'm solely obsessed with that. I'm really obsessed with I'm embarrassed when something I do starts to look like what's already on the market. You know, then I think to myself, well, what am I doing? Where's my contribution? So that's number one, this notion of like an original fingerprint, you know? And I think the second is that I just have this childlike sensibility about, like, I don't know, wanting to make fun, beautiful, interesting. I like the word used, thought-provoking, and even disruptive things. You know, it's like shake up the world, make people rethink things, make people see the world a little bit differently.
Most definitely. My last question for you is, I'm sure there are lots of aspiring designers who are going to watch this video, and here in the Middle East especially. So I want to know if you have a message for any aspiring designers who are wanting to follow in your footsteps, or you know, have you as an inspiration. What top tips would you give them to creating, you know, their own beautiful pieces in whatever field that might be?
Yeah. Well, you know, it's a very tough question. But I think there's a bunch of things that really keep you going, and one is perseverance. So it's design profession is a difficult profession because it keeps knocking you down. You can have great ideas, but if you can't manage to get a brand or a client to produce, it means nothing.
Yeah.
And we all have ideas. The important part is how do you get those ideas realized and manifested. I always like Heidegger. He always said to be is to build.
Yeah.
So whether for the ego or whatever it is, you feel like it needs to be produced, right? So perseverance, keep going. Diligence, work hard. The reality is I worked so hard in my life, like obsessively, so, and I remember landing in New York at the age of 33, penniless, and sleeping on a floor for 6 weeks, trying to figure out how on earth I'm going to find some projects. And I was so-called starting my own practice, right? And I had already worked in 2 other practices. I already had 2 degrees. So I was like starting at the bottom again at 33. And I worked very hard. Third one is, let's be honest with yourself. I think it's very important to have a hyper awareness of whether you're really talented or not, whether that profession is really right for you or not. Because a lot of us, we go into professions based on many other factors. Maybe the profession's in trend, or the parents are pushing you into something, or onward and onward. But are you good at it? And when I was teaching for many years, I was probably a pretty ruthless professor, but I would tell students, I don't think this profession is for you. I was told off by the dean in many universities that I shouldn't be doing that, But I would say to them, but I would be, the positive side is, tell me, what I think you are good at, though.
Yeah.
And I would sort of try to direct them to change their degree or do something of that nature. So, you have to be honest with that, because why? You're going to just suffer all your life. You're going to have a very, very hard time. And inevitably you'll miss what your true meaning is in this world, like why you're here on this planet.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer in that. We're all here to do something on this planet. So the question is, are you finding your passion, your thing, right? Okay. 4th one, passion. And passion is the greatest driver for anybody that accomplished something in this world. You'll find that passion drove them, not money. So, and then the last thing I'll say is, don't worry about being comfortable. Even now, I'm well off. I've done a lot of work and everything, but none of that matters to me.
Yeah.
So I still, in a way, haven't changed that much from when I had nothing. Meaning, I still have the drive to create, and I'm determined to make things that are important.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much
for
talking to us.
Great
It's
pleasure
been
to talk
an
to you.
absolute pleasure. It's been lovely to have you here at HIVE Furniture Show 2025, and I'm sure everybody will really love the opportunity to absorb all of your incredible insight when it comes to the world of design.
That's very kind of you.
Thank you
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You.